No matter how full my closet gets, I swear I have nothing that I want to wear, which is why I'm super grateful for Armoire, because with their clothing rental membership, I get to have access to high quality, unique brands tailored just for me. All I had to do was take a 5-minute style quiz, and it was scary accurate with how much they knew my style, and by some kind of magic, it was delivered at my door within 2 days. If I want to try something new or swap out styles, I just send it. No laundry required. Best thing. Armoire is great for so many reasons. It can help define your personal style. It's super spot on. And also it's sustainable because I don't have to feel bad about if I wear an outfit one time and I just want to try something new. I can rent things, try them out, and keep swapping and not have to worry about waste. Plus, you're always going to have something to wear without hassle or clutter in your closet, which is what I really relate to. And no matter what occasion you have, whether it's a date or a work conference or a black tie event, you'll be the best dressed person in the room without even stepping a foot into the fitting room. This is fantastic because I've literally bought an entire outfit before just to go to one party. Armoire can also help if your body is changing, whether that's a fitness journey or during pregnancy. I know I've recommended this to a lot of the new moms that I know in my life, because your body's changing and you want to feel great and amazing. And one of my favorite things is that Armoire is women owned and led. They even spotlight women owned designers on their website. Right now, our listeners can give Armoire a try and get up to 50% off their first month. That is up to $125 off. Just visit armoire.style/booktalk. That's Armoire, ARMOIRE.style/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get 50% off your first month.
It's graduation season, and with that, my sister's getting kicked off my mother's mobile plan. What that means for her is she's switching to Mint Mobile because when you're a college student, you don't have a fat wallet.
She's actually pretty lucky, though, about getting over to Mint Mobile because of the savings and the quality of wireless service that Mint Mobile provides.
Say bye-bye to overpriced wireless plans with jaw-dropping monthly bills and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue.
All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk, text, and delivered on the nation's largest 5G network.
Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along because if you're like me, you've had it since 2007.
I love that we get to carry our phone number. This is going to make me seriously want to ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. That is ridiculous.
So this year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get your summer savings and shop premium wireless plans at mintmobile.com/booktalk. That's mintmobile.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month, 5GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for the first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Between work, errands, and whatever your group chat is spiraling about today, life rarely slows down. But you don't need the perfect moment to escape into something good. Romance is ready when you are, and Galatea puts steamy, swoon-worthy stories right at your fingertips. Galatea is a reading app built for anyone craving a little me time with an endless library of romance stories designed to leave you feeling recharged and fulfilled. We're talking bad boy billionaires, werewolf alphas, forbidden love, slow burn fantasy, and shifter romance. Really everything you could possibly want and more. Personally, I've been using Galatea to wind down after long work days. Sometimes I don't finish until 7 or 8. Oops. And it's the best way to unplug. Way better than doom scrolling. I tell myself just one more chapter and then suddenly it's so late because I just have to know what happens next in these stories. The audio elements that go with these stories keep me hooked and sucked into the story in a way that other types of content just doesn't. Galatea has over 1,000 bestsellers, new chapters dropping daily, and an exclusive catalog of authors you won't find anywhere else. Over 30 million people have already fallen in love with reading on Galatea. Now it's your turn. Right now, Galatea is offering our listeners an extra 25% off on top of an already irresistibly affordable subscription when you go to galatea.com/dating. That's GALATEA.com/dating to indulge in unlimited stories for even less. galatea.com/dating.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, your besties with a literary podcast that deep dives into your favorite novels. We're currently in the middle of our spring book club, but today we're taking a break to talk to Penn Cole, author of the Kindred Curse saga. Penn Cole is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling fantasy romance author. A former attorney and small business owner, Penn received her undergraduate degree in creative writing with the dream of writing the next great American novel. The Kindred Curse saga is her debut series. She's a regular participant in NaNoWriMo, and when she's not writing, she loves to read fantasy, rom-coms, and humorous nonfiction. A born and bred Texas girl, Penn currently lives in France with her husband, where she can usually be found eating pastries and trolling her readers on Discord.
Welcome to the podcast, Penn.
Thank you for having me.
Hi.
I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. Oh my God, it is fantastic that you're here. I was chatting with you a little bit before we started recording. We are your books are so rich, and I've been dying to speak with you. And it was one of those things, like, once we started talking about it, and I'm like, do I reach out? Do I reach out? Do we just do we
always
do it?
Reach out. Always.
Is it insane if we just what if she said yes? And so this is you're actually part of our vision board. So thank you.
That's an honor. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh.
We have vision champagne also. So then it's kind of if we reach certain vision boards. So I get to open the bottle of champagne for you in honor of you.
I'm in France.
Thank you.
So it's perfect.
I didn't realize that you live in France. That's incredible.
I am. Paris, France right now, right out my window.
Paris is one of my favorite cities. I think it gets too much crap and everything. And
I think people are either Paris people or they're not. You come here and you love it, or you absolutely can't stand it. And it feels like it's always one or the other. Never no, it's okay.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan. Any place that compliments me, I'm a huge fan. And I felt like everyone was so friendly.
They really are. They get a bad rap. I always joke that they're M&Ms, hard candy outside, but so sweet on the inside. It just takes a little crack to get in. This
is so not part of the questions I started with, but it's, but I agree thoroughly with that. Just start a little bit with French. They'll take pity on you and switch to English.
They really do.
Yeah, very quickly.
Very.
But there's a lot of French influence in your series. So
there is.
Which makes a lot of sense. One of the most interesting things that and I'm starting very quickly because there's a lot more meat to eat into this. But one of the very first questions that we kind of need to get it not out of the way, but for listeners who may be unfamiliar with the story, I had no idea until I saw you at romantasy and you were doing a panel, but Glow was written first. And you're just you know what? This needs a little bit more beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote Glow first, and if you've read Spark and you know what happens at the end of Spark, that was what happened at the very beginning of the series. It was in the first or second chapter that this huge thing happened, and that thing is this thing that sort of throws her life upside down and forces her out of this small little mortal village that she was raised in, and has to go out, see more of the world, interact with people that she's been sheltered from her whole life, and really just expand her world so much. And this is something we see very, very often in fantasy books, where the main character comes from a small town, something happens, and they're forced out into the magical world or the big city or whatever. And so I think that in some ways, subconsciously, I was sort of following what I'd always seen happen in other fantasy books. And as I was writing it, it just felt kind of wrong. It felt like this wasn't the right place to start her story, especially because where she came from is so important to who she is. And really everything that she does in the entire series comes from her experience before that thing happens at the end of Spark. And so to start her story there is it's incomplete, and we can't fully understand who she is until we've seen that. So I said, we got to go back. We have to see her life before. We have to see Mortal City, the people that she was raised with, her family, her friends, this childhood love interest that she's sort of clinging on to. And if we understand why that's so important to her, then we'll understand why she makes the decisions she makes later on that are maybe a bit controversial.
Yeah. I mean, you have everything that's what's at stake, like what does it mean for her to, I mean, and we're going to talk as if everyone's read all 3 books, like,
Okay.
if they haven't, that's not,
Got it.
that's not on me. They know what they're getting into, but like, it makes sense that she would need to have such a foundation, because the questions and the topics you're going to make her like have to challenge her. You can't go into a series without having such a stable foundation on who she is and what she believes and what she's been, I feel like one of the most important things, been taught, been raised in.
Absolutely.
And in order for her to make such challenging decisions and to grapple with those choices.
Yeah. 100%. You just don't know who she is if you didn't know her before. And I think that's part of her story in Glow, is not just her learning about these descended that she's now, kind of around all of the time, but having them understand her and why she's so adamant about certain things, why she won't let go of certain things, like why she's angry and bitter at them about certain things. And one of my favorite scenes in the entire series is at the end of Glow, when she's walking with Taran and Onyx through Mortal City and sort of showing them, this is where I grew up and this is, and just sort of introducing her life to them, because she thinks she's going to die and she really wants them to like at least know somebody else to carry on this fight for her that has power, because the mortals alone don't have it. And I loved that, because you can see like almost in real time their eyes opening to, wow, we have turned our faces away from this, even though it was right down the road, and we didn't look at it because it made us uncomfortable, because it reflected our own privilege back at us. It made us feel like we had things we didn't deserve, or that, whatever, which I think is something that is very much a problem in our real world today, that people don't want to look at the consequences of the privilege that they have. They want to just sort of put blinders on and only look at their life and not anyone else's. And so I love that moment where she's in this like moment of love and keeping them close as friends. She's also forcing them to like change. If you love me, then change. And I love that moment.
Yeah, I remember that scene very clearly, because I thought one of the most realistic moments was like, it wasn't an immediate, they walked in and was like, wow, you're right. I was like, I was wrong the whole time.
Yeah.
It is very hard for people to recognize privilege, because when you hear the term privilege, people immediately think, well, I actually, I had to do all these other things. I had like, I wasn't rich. I had to work to get through school. Yeah. And it's like, no one said you didn't, my friend.
Yeah.
Some people can
Everyone
have it worse.
Does. Suffering is relative. I mean, no matter how much money, fame, power, whatever you have, you're going to have struggles in your life. Like everyone does, that doesn't mean we ignore some of these systemic injustices and say, well, that's just how it is.
Yeah, that's one thing I loved, especially about Glow, is that, you spend Spark really empathizing with DM, finding, even if your circumstances are not DM circumstances, we've read enough characters in DM circumstances that we feel that empathy and we can see how it relates to our own life. But then you get into Glow, and then especially the scene you're talking about with Onyx and Taran, I definitely felt like, oh, I'm Onyx and Taran. I feel like I'm being taught a lesson at the same time.
We all are.
Right.
I mean, no matter what demographic we come from, I think if you're wealthy and privileged enough to be buying books and having free time to read and speaking English, then you probably have there's probably other people in the world that are suffering and facing injustice, that you have a privilege over. So regardless of where we are, I think all have some eye-opening we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Before, I know Amy's going to read the next question, but we agree aggressively with that. We always say on the podcast, especially on TikTok, where people are just trashing different genres, and it's reading is a privilege. Not everyone has the money, the opportunity, the education to read. It's not their fault. Boredom is a privilege. When people are just bored, it's oh, how lucky for you. You don't have to work 3 jobs to survive. Yeah, good job. You get to be bored.
There's a part, I think in Heat, maybe, where maybe it's Zalric when they're in Umbro City, and he's like, satisfaction is the death of curiosity. When you have your needs met, you know, you get to be bored, and your curiosity kind of dies because you're just like, I have everything I need, you know?
Yeah.
And it there really is a kind of a connection there.
Yeah. I don't know how to segue into the next question, but
So we're gonna do it. We're gonna just go in.
So our next question is about colonization and how that's a theme in your books. And
there's no smooth transition to that. I forgot that. Yeah.
I do feel like this idea of privilege, and no matter what your circumstances are, you could be the poorest person of the oppressors in a colony and still be more privileged than those who are oppressed. So it's all connected. I just didn't have a smooth way to get there. So this theme of colonization feels very intentional throughout your series. And what we feel like you do so well is that there's no true evil characters. Maybe it's a little bit arguable once we get towards the end, but even
for the most part, there really aren't.
Yeah, even at the end of Heat, you're like, I kind of understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And it requires DM, but also us as readers, to really think out what are our values and how are we judging the characters that are presented in this series. Can you talk to us about why this was important for you to explore in your novels and what you hope readers take away from reading the Kindred Curse saga?
Yeah. So a few different things. Number one, it just is more interesting to read to me. I get kind of bored by stories where there's somebody who's just evil for no reason, or just evil kind of to a ridiculous extent, and you don't really know why, other than they just want power, and that, you know, has them do all these awful things. And not that that's not a thing that exists. I think we can see right now that it does, but I always think it's more interesting and more poignant if you kind of a little bit agree with the bad guy.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't agree with their choices or the things that they have done, the people that they've hurt, but you at least can see what happened that got them to the point that they're at. And so that's really what I like to write. The people, there's maybe only a few characters in the book I would really consider like genuinely awful people. Yeah. And they're pretty much minor characters. They don't have a huge role in the story. The people who are driving the story forward are really complex. And especially as the author, I have a really hard time condemning many of them because I know what got them there, and to write them, I have to sort of have a little bit of sympathy for them. Number two, let's be honest, I know that the majority of my audience is white women. And in a lot of ways, as one, I feel an obligation to take my group along. Maybe let's all learn something together, right? Because coming from the South, being a white woman, a thing I hear a lot is, well, it's not my fault. So why should I have to like give up things or whatever? This idea that they have to sacrifice or lose something in order for other people to have equality. And I just hear that so much. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. I'm not racist. So, why is it my responsibility? And my hope is that through this journey, maybe they'll start second guessing that. And maybe they'll start kind of checking that bias that they have and say, no, we all have an obligation. All of us have an obligation to do this. And you might think that you're a good person and maybe you have a good heart. But if you see this injustice happening and you do nothing about it, are you a good person, really?
Yeah.
And I hope that people, as they read, really ask themselves that question as DM like holds people's feet to the fire and tells the people in her life, you didn't do enough, and I didn't do enough. She knows she's just as guilty, and she says it frequently. I really hope that readers go on that journey with her and think about that and internalize those conversations. In Heat, like we see Onyx and DM have this conversation, and Taryn as well, where they're like realizing how much they could have done and didn't, or at least how much they didn't look at the problem and refuse to acknowledge that it existed. So I really hope people do fall in love with Onyx and Taryn, so that when they have those gut checks of, I didn't do enough, what can I do now? Maybe they ask themselves the same question in their lives.
Yeah.
That doesn't strictly relate to colonization.
No, but it does, though.
I think a lot of things are generational effects of colonization and the consequences of it. So,
I mean, look at America, right? Like, we're generational colonization.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
was I the one who did it? No. But at the same time, like, we were brought up in a system that was built on colonization and the exploitation of local indigenous and then eventually slaves. Like, you can't say that what we are a part of was not built on that. And what privileges I get from that is based off of horrible things. So if we don't recognize that and recognize like what we've, you know, quote unquote benefit. I mean, not even quote unquote have benefited from it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like Amy is half Chinese and I'm half Chilean. So, but both of us are like pretty white passing. And at the same time though, it's like, and I always joke the colonizer one in me. I think having the perspective of saying like, you may not judge me until you realize where I'm from, like what my background is. Like, my mom was born in a different country and people don't like that. You can't look at the world without looking at colonization, because that's where we're at.
I very clearly am the beneficiary of colonization. I grew up in China, but I'm very much viewed as white. I'm very much respected as a white person in an Asian country. And so it doesn't matter that my grandfather on my dad's side fled China during the Cultural Revolution. That doesn't matter. I'm white at the end of the day, and I'm a beneficiary of the privileges of that.
And I think it appears in so many different ways in the real world. We see it happening in like real time in a place like Gaza, but we also see it having happened generations ago in a place like the US or in many of the French colonies or the British colonies. Those manifest in different ways, but it's all still the same problem, right?
Yeah.
And I hope that as people read the book, they see both of those reflections of both of those things, because there was no one group or conflict that I was modeling this after, but thinking about all of the different ways in which colonization throughout history has affected people in the past and now, and putting little bits of that in the story so that when people read the news, they're thinking like about the story that they read where they, you know, identified with the oppressed, and maybe they don't like that and think it's wrong.
Yeah. And this goes into our next question, and I'm going to read it verbatim because I don't want to screw it up. So if it doesn't sound as smooth of a transition, but I think it makes sense of what you're saying with Diem having to recognize her own faults. You can point out other people's faults, and it means nothing if you do not recognize your own. And I think, and Amy and I both think, that normally writing a protagonist in a fantasy setting can be difficult when the characters know more than the reader about the world. But in Diem's case, we learn that she's ignorant of both the descended and the suppression of the human population. Like, she's aware of both, but, you know, could learn more.
Yeah.
This results in her having both imposed ignorance and willful ignorance, which in our opinion challenges, like you're saying, the reader and maybe makes them uncomfortable. And do you feel like this makes Diem more relatable and possibly holds up a mirror to the reader? Because when Amy and I were reading this, we were both brought up in conservative backgrounds, and we both had to at one point say, that's not great from me. Like, that's not, you know, maybe this isn't the right move. And so the willful ignorance and then the inflicted ignorance, you just did such a good job of that, because like people don't realize like one is a choice, one is not, but they're at the end of the day there is a choice.
At some point they both become a choice, you know. I think it's what makes her great. It's also what makes her very frustrating many times. I think it's a really good tool for the reader, because the reader, Diem doesn't know that much more than the reader does, and so we learn about the world as she does and can process it in real time with her. And the rest of the world is kind of frustrated with her for like catch up, girl. We've all known this for a long time. Like, you got to catch up. And so it creates that sort of tension of like her needing to adjust quickly without having time or all of the information that she needs to really adjust quickly, which of course leads to making a lot of mistakes, making poor decisions, because who makes the right decision the first time every time? Like, no one. Also, she's young and there are things you do when you're young that, you know, maybe aren't the wisest decisions. And she's experiencing a lot of loss, and none of us make great decisions when we're in the midst of like grief and loss. So she's going through it. She's going through it. But I love the place that it puts her in as a kind of a true middle, right? Because there's sort of a lot of extremes where you have people who feel really strongly on different sides. And at different times, maybe she shows some sympathy or support for one or the other, but generally she's pretty in the middle.
Yeah.
And she's trying to figure out what she believes and who deserves support. Or maybe they both do.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people are in the world today as well. Like they may not find themselves on one super extreme or the other of any kind of political spectrum or like ideology. They might see aspects of both that kind of sound common sense and rational to them. And they're just trying to figure out like, what's the right thing?
Yeah.
What is the right thing to do? And that's very much where she's at, is struggling with realizing there's so much she doesn't know and just trying to figure out what is the right thing to do.
So well said. So well said. It's
Which, I think that's what makes DM so relatable, because no one gives us a manual in life. I mean, people try, right? That's what religion is. That's what a lot of things are, but there's no right way to do it. And DM certainly shows us how difficult that journey is. And I think that means sometimes that your readers, all
of our readers.
I was thinking our listeners, your readers,
right,
smushed together. Might hold DM to a higher standard than Luther.
God,
who makes probably just as many mistakes.
So many
mistakes. Want to strangle him sometimes, as much as I love him. Did you intend this, DM and Luther kind of being two sides of the same coin, to challenge readers' internalized misogyny? Because that's what it did I think for me.
I'm not sure I intentionally was trying to challenge it so much as accepting that was going to be a fact of,
that's the genre too, right?
It's the genre. It's reading.
Yeah.
It's
true.
Literature, full stop. It's the world, full stop. So it was something I knew would happen. I'm very cognizant of it in other books I had read and how readers react to other characters. And I wanted DM to be real. And I kind of had to accept that would mean people didn't like her. And honestly, no matter what I made her, people wouldn't like her. If she was too perfect, they would hate her for that. If she was too flawed, they'd hate her. If she was always made the right decision, people would get bored and say it was too simple. There's just always going to be critics.
Yeah.
And so what I tried to do was just make her as real as I possibly could, and be very self-aware myself, kind of in saying, if this person truly existed in these circumstances, what realistically would they do? Even if I know readers are going to hate it, what would she actually do? And that leads to a lot of decisions, like her choosing to stay with Henry in Glow, and her choosing not to kill Vance in Heat, that get a lot of criticism. But they are 1000% the decision that she would make, realistically, in those circumstances, with what she knows and how she feels and how she was raised. With Luther, sweet Luther, I think
goat loving Luther.
we love him. I think Luther's problem is, whereas DM is self-aware, she's in a lot of denial about things, but she is self-aware about her own flaws, at least. I think Luther does not have a lot of self-awareness. I don't think he knows who he is at all, especially at the beginning of the series, because all he has ever been, he is a tool to be used by the Grey-Eyed Queen someday, and he's just keeping himself ready to be used by this person who he doesn't even know who it's going to be. And so that doesn't allow any room for him and his happiness, his wants, his beliefs. He tries a little bit in how he helps the half-mortal children, because he has this trauma in his past that really sticks with him. But outside of that, he's just a public servant. And that's kind of all he allows himself to be. And one of the things about DM coming into his life and becoming queen and sort of taking that burden of the crown off of his shoulders is it allows him to say, oh, I can do this and I can be a fully formed human being.
Yeah.
What what then do I want to be? And that's like a huge part of his arc over the series, especially going into book 4, is who am I? And what do I want?
I mean, even through the whole series, and I love how you do this because, you know, he's just like, I will follow you wherever you go. And it's,
so
and,
dedicated.
you know, and we're sitting here, we're like, that is romantic. Like, I want someone to follow me. But at the same time, he has such absolute blind faith in her without any kind of doubt. And on one hand, it's like, good, that's awesome. But on the other hand, like, I want to see more about his, I mean, he questions her constantly with stuff, but like,
he
you
does.
know, he does question her, but like, he has like such faith, and like him being like, I want goats. I was like, wow, you get what you want.
I think like me writing that and DM experiencing it was like the exact same reaction of like, what?
Yeah.
I literally typed it and said, what? Okay. I mean, all right. That was not in the plan at all. It just came out of my fingers. I don't know. That was his idea, not mine. But I think it's very Marie Antoinette. And I don't know, for people who don't know much about Marie Antoinette, if you come to Versailles here in France, there's a little part that's like her Hamlet. And you can see a little bit of it if you watch like Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette. But she built this farm on the grounds of Versailles, and it's got like a dairy where you milk cows and a little chicken coop and a little garden, and all of it is marble and gold and just extravagant beauty, but made to look like a little rural farm. It's wild. And I think she romanticized this idea of a rural life because it was so different from her life, which was all about you are queen, you have no control over your life, you do what you're told to do, you go where you're told to go, you can only hang out with the people that the king says you can hang out with. You know, all of that. Her entire life was very drawn out for her by other people. And this was an area where she could go pretend to be free and have a life to herself and do whatever she wanted. And I think in some ways that's Luther with his little goat farm. He loves the idea of waking up in the morning and not having to go be the prince, but just feed his goat and chop some wood and, you know, sit out on his front porch with the woman he loves and like have a glass of lemonade or something. That to him is the pinnacle of life.
Yeah.
Whereas to the people living in mortal city who do that every day, being the prince and living in the palace and having power is the pinnacle of life. So we always romanticize what we don't have.
But getting that towards the point where we get it just shows the character development too that you did. You know, like that he's willing to admit it. Sorry, Amy, totally cut you off.
No, it's okay. I think what I enjoy about Luther is that his attitude towards DM and, you know, I'll do whatever you need me to do is it starts out romantic, but then by the end of Heat, you're like, please just have an opinion. Please just like do something selfish for once.
Yeah.
And I think it shows how sometimes the extreme we romanticize in a partner is not actually desirable for a lot of reasons. And that's what I really like about his character and his role in DMs.
There's more to come on that in book 4.
I'm so excited.
That arc is continuing for sure. Yeah. He gets challenged by some people and like, who are you outside of DM? Like, do you exist outside of her?
Yeah.
And that is a real crisis of conscience for him because that has never been a question he's been asked before.
Right.
And he doesn't know the answer either.
Baby boy.
I know. He's a mess. We love him. He's a mess. But I will say one of the things I do really love about him, there's a couple of parts in the book that are pretty subtle, but it's where the same problem or question is presented to Henry early on and then Luther later on. And there's one in particular where DM asks, like she's sort of having this moment of panic at the end of Spark. She's like, let's run away. Let's go somewhere else and get away from all of this and, you know, live a life somewhere else because she's just freaking out about everything that's going on in her life. And Henry, the pragmatist, is like, no, we can't leave. Are you kidding me? Like, we have families here. There's a war coming. Like, we have obligations. We have to stay and live our lives. And he's very judgmental of her for even wanting to leave, which rightfully so. Like, I think he's absolutely right in that for judging her. But then you come along later and at the end of Heat, DM has the same thing where she tells Luther, like, she's panicking, freaking out. Let's run away. Let's go somewhere else, have our own little life together. And he says, okay, Let's do it. Let's go. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What will we do in our life? Because he knows DM better than Henry did, even though he hasn't known her as long. He knows her heart, I think, better.
Yeah.
And he knows she's never actually going to leave. Like she might run emotionally, but she doesn't run from a fight. He knows she's going to stay. She's going to fight. She's going to do whatever it takes to save her people. But she needs to know that she's not alone. No matter what choice that she makes, she won't be alone. And she just needed somebody to say, I'll be there. Whatever you choose to do, even if it's the wrong choice, I'm there. I'm with you. And you won't have to do it alone. And that was the reassurance that she needed. And he knew that about her. So would he actually have run away with her? No. He would have said, girl, we have to stay. We got things to do. He would never have really left. But he knew she wouldn't either.
Yeah.
And he knew that the question she was asking out loud was not the question she really needed an answer to.
Yeah. I'm getting emotional. Listen. So I'm going to switch those questions because I think it's a better segue into Henry. Before we do that,
we'll be right back. As we both know, Jac, you love to make sure your nails are done. I aspire to have my nails done, but I'm the kind of person that always does it myself at home.
if I don't have my nails done, I don't feel confident. Like there's just something about having your nails looking good that makes me feel good.
That's why I recently started trying Olive & June's press-on manicure system, and quite frankly, they're beautiful, it's easy, and I feel great about it.
I normally either get black nails, red nails, and Olive & June is actually making me change what kind of nail color I get. I am obsessed with Rodeo Queen. It might be Rodeo Queen, but we live in LA, so for me, it's Rodeo Queen. But they have so many good colors.
I am obsessed with the polish color Obsessed. It's this dark vampiric red. I can't wait to try it out.
Olive & June has everything you need for a salon quality manicure. It's all in one box, and it's perfect for that DIY, do it at home.
You can customize your kit with 6 different polishes of your choice, and let me tell you, they have so many options.
You can even do gel nails at home, which is so expensive at the nail salon. The polishes, they don't chip, it lasts for 7 or more days, and essentially it breaks down to just $2 per manicure.
It makes your manicure routine super simple, super fast. You can do it on a Sunday night so that you're ready for the workday Monday. Now you do it on your timetable, whenever is convenient for you, and quite frankly, with my press-ons, I don't have to wait for the polish to dry.
Visit oliveandjune.com/booktalk for 20% off your first system.
That's oliveandjune.com/BOOKTALK for 20% off your first system. As most people can guess, commuting in LA sucks. And so I've started taking the train. And the best thing about that is I get to read my romance books on the go.
And if you're like me and you're not commuting, you like to stay up till 2 a.m. reading Galatea, trying to get one more chapter.
Galatea is a reading app where anyone craving a little me time can dive into a library of romance stories that leave you feeling recharged and fulfilled.
There are over 1,000 bestsellers to choose from, and if you can't figure out what you want, they have Shifter Romance, Bad Boy Billionaire, Forbidden Love, Werewolf Alpha, Slow Burn, Fantasy, Teen Drama, and so much more.
Galatea is home to original series and standalone stories with an exclusive catalog of best-selling authors, with new chapters dropping daily, so there is always something new to explore.
Don't worry, you're not going to be alone. Over 30 million people have fallen in love with reading on Galatea. Join now to indulge in stories that make you feel like yourself again.
Right now, Galatea is offering our listeners an extra 25% off on top of an already irresistibly affordable subscription when you go to galatea.com/booktalk.
That's GALATEA.com/BOOKTALK to indulge in unlimited stories for even less.
That's galatea.com/booktalk.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
I don't save quotes from books because like we save so much from just like in general. I it's something that I just kind of like we highlight so much for the podcast that I don't really save quotes. But one of my I have 2 favorite quotes from the series that I actually like wrote down, and DM said, "The people of Mortal City, my people, had never been allowed to be lucky, and I was not built to walk away." And I was like, if that wasn't so long, that would be on my body somewhere tattooed. Like I was like, oh my damn, that's a good one. But kind of, I do want to go into a little bit more about Henry, because I think that he is such a great subject to talk about, because people love to be angry about Henry. And Amy and I were like, we were both like, I like him. Like he's complicated. Right. And some readers find Henry hard to like because he doesn't necessarily treat DM the best, kind of like you were saying, and he's not like the dreamy shadow daddy that we all know and love.
Yeah, that's the real reason. Let's
yeah, that's the real
shadow magic. He would have a whole fan club.
All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, I get that. We feel like his character requires the reader to think critically and recognize their own internal prejudices, because what he stands for and what he represents are oppressed people and groups, including those we see in our own day and age. To what extent would you say that that was your intention, or was the narrative developed through drafting and revision process? Because I remember in your panel you said that the Guardians weren't even really introduced until you wrote the first book.
Yeah, 100%. That was always his role in the story. I mean, he was, yes, romantically a foil to Luther. But in the sort of larger fantasy plot, he was the voice of the mortals, and he represented their fight. And he was always intended to be close to DM throughout much of the story so that he could be that counterpoint. Originally, she and Henry were together like through the end of book 3. Wow. Yeah, because I needed to keep him around and, to keep him sort of there. And my beta readers were like, or my alpha readers were like, we'll murder you. You cannot do this to us. So we changed that up a little bit. But he was always the voice of the mortals, for sure. And he is, for that reason, he's the hardest character for me to write, because I feel the most pressure to get him right. Mm-hmm. I've learned in time that that's not going to happen, because as you mentioned, how people feel about him is often a reflection of their own internalized maybe biases or feelings that they have towards marginalized groups. And I can't fix that. Yeah. I can try, but it's not going to be solved overnight. And all I can kind of do is turn that mirror back around as often as I can in, interviews and panels and things, and say like, okay, maybe this is why you hate him, or this is why you shouldn't hate him, and hopefully make people like stop and think like, oh crap, she's right. Now that I see him like that, actually, I kind of agree with him. Because pretty much everything he says in the books, I agree with. I mean, almost everything. And most of the choices that he makes, not 100% of them, but most of the choices I either think were the right choice for him, or are no worse than the choices that DM made that we praise her for. So it's really, it's, I think, more about who he is and less what he's done. In my opinion.
I was conscious of it when we read the series, but then when we heard you at your panel at RomantasyCon, I felt schooled, like you schooled everybody in the room, myself included.
Yes.
And I could tell how passionate you were about it and how sincere you were. It's reaffirmed everything I was like, yeah, that's what it is. And we're like, no, you don't understand. This is so important. And so I appreciate the passion that you bring and the sincerity that you bring to his character, because he is a great foil to how we view the world in general.
Yeah. I love fighting about Henry. It's like my favorite pastime. Normally, I don't fight with people about their opinions on books because reading is subjective. Art is, the beauty of art is that people can interpret the same thing differently. And I fully support that. But with Henry, that's the one thing that it's like I can't let go of because it has this greater world sort of, significance. And I always love when people are like, okay, but when he like wanted the crown and he was power hungry and he just wanted to use her, I'm like, no. She asked him, first of all, not the other way around. He asked her before she was queen. And what he said, I chose his words very carefully in that scene. And he's saying, we can do this. We can help the mortals. Not I'm going to do it and leave you behind.
Right.
Like now together, we will have the power to do this. And he's very much a follower. That is his flaw, is that he is a follower and he wants Diem to lead. He wants her to be the one forging the path ahead to save the mortals and for him to be the man behind her, like cheering her on and saying, He doesn't necessarily want to be the one leading it, but he's pushing her because he knows she can do it. He believes she's capable and that she, is powerful and she can do it. And he's nudging her along on that path. Because number one, that they grew up saying that's what they were going to do. And that he, in his mind, they're on the same page about that. But two, he believes in her. He really, truly believes that she can be this force for good. And so when people say, oh, he's being selfish, I'm like, they're fighting for their people. That's inherently unselfish.
Selfish is he for wanting to have people live?
He's not saying I want to be rich and famous. He's saying like, I want to free my people. That's not selfish.
Well, and just your description of him, of how much he supports Diem, how much he sees her as a leader and wants her to succeed. Like, that's no different than Luther. That's exactly how I would describe Luther as well.
Absolutely. They are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Henry and Luther. They're just, one is descended, one is mortal, and that, has affected everything about them.
I think Henry is like the ultimate reflection of a lot of characters, because even with, and I'm setting you up for the next one, Amy, because even with there's a lot of Luther and Henry comparison, but Diem's dad also, I think that Henry is a great counterbalance, and that's part of the book one conflict is Diem is kind of put in the middle. So take it away.
Yeah. So, if we look at Spark, Luther's this anomaly in her life, but there are two constants, and that's Henry and Andre, her father. And they are both very influential in how Diem has not only grown up, but think and the way she lives. And the fascinating thing about these two men is that they both are fighting for what they believe is best for humanity, for the mortals, but their beliefs and their strategy to achieving that goal is completely different. And it basically is tearing Diem apart. Because Spark was written after Glow, at least in your first drafting process, what was Andre meant to be Henry's foil because of the absence of Luther, maybe, in the first book, because it feels very much so that they're playing off each other.
Definitely. Okay, so stay with me here. There's kind of this funny overlap we have with this idea, or not this idea, but this issue of colonization. And also this trope we see often in science fiction of aliens coming to Earth. And, aliens coming to Earth, how do we react to it? You have some people who say, yes, our new alien overlords, bow down and worship you, whatever you say, you're amazing, and think they're the greatest, and that their arrival is wonderful. We have the people who are the polar opposite and say, let's kill them, let's nuke them, destroy them, protect our land, and get them out. And we have the people who just put their head down and say, I'm just trying to survive here.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to stay alive. Whoever's in charge, whatever, I just want to live my life and not die. And of course, many different points along that spectrum. And that was something I was unpacking in a fantasy context, along with this theme of colonization, is how do the colonized react to this happening? And it's a spectrum. It's not, everybody doesn't have, they're not a monolith. They don't all have the same opinion about it.
Yeah.
And you do have people that say, just stop fighting it. Like, I just want peace. I don't want war. Like, stop putting up a fight. Accept it. It's not going to change. And you have the people who will fight to the death to change it and fix it. And the people in the middle who are like Mora, who are just trying to live their lives and say, like, don't break the rules. Let's just like stay healthy and alive. And that Henry, Mora, and Andre are, to me, the three like points on that spectrum. One extreme and the other, and then the middle. So that we kind of see there's not, the mortals don't all have the same opinion about this. They're still trying to figure out how they feel and what they want and what they're willing to fight for and how to fight for it.
Yeah, I love that you break it down that way. I didn't even think about Moira, but I see it.
Yeah.
I see that spectrum in the three of them. Do you feel like, and I guess we're talking about spoilers. We've said some
I already
things.
gave a heads up earlier.
Excellent.
People can suck it up.
I feel like when Andre is murdered, it pushes Diem to kind of cling towards Henry, like hold on tighter to Henry.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's this vacuum. And she's not going to fill it with the Descended because the Descended killer, supposedly killed her father.
Yeah.
It is a very fascinating thing to have witnessed. And I love that you take this idea of like, here are the principles of sci-fi. Now let me put it in a fantasy novel.
I know.
Yeah.
You when we were chatting before, Penn was saying that she has an MFA in creative. She has an MFA. She has a creative writing. And I was like, God, like I don't know if you can see like my reader Hart eyes right now with you, where I'm like, the intention.
Let's write a paper on this.
Yeah, I know. I was like, all I want to do is write a 10-page paper on how like everything on your book, because like it's just the intent, and not just the intent, but the execution. God,
Thank you.
Sorry, sometimes I'm like, okay, I am talking to the author, so it is like, weird, like that I'm gushing, but it's true.
Yeah, Andre's death, it absolutely was meant to sort of slingshot her backwards a little bit. In the chapter right before it, Luther is declaring his love for her. She's like one breath away from saying, let's do this. Like, I'm yours, And she's really thinking, I have feelings for these people, not just for him, but she's thinking it for Eleanor too.
Yep.
And that sort of that first walk after the ball, she's thinking, well, I'm going to have to like readjust my plan because I actually really like these people and I don't want to destroy them all.
Yeah.
And she's really coming to terms with having strong feelings for all of them. And then Andre dies in this really awful way. And it completely pulls her back into, now I remember why I hated them. It's not that her love for them is erased, but it's a very real reminder that it's not all like sunshine and roses and friendship at the palace. Like there's this bloody war going on outside. And she has briefly lost sight of that in the midst of becoming queen and all the fanfare and pomp and circumstance around it. So it's a grounding moment for her of the war going on outside the palace walls. And it definitely is like, it also really forces her to cling to what she has left, because she's now lost her identity as a mortal. She's lost her mother. She's lost her father. She has very little left of her original life, except for her brother, who she becomes like obsessively protective over. And Henry, who, even though things are really bad between them, she's like holding on for dear life and not letting him go.
Yeah, I feel like people don't, whether they've never experienced loss before or they forget it, but like my dad's died, my uncle, my grandpa, like men who have been like huge parts of my life have passed, and it's like you cling on to family, you cling on to normality, you cling on to things that get you by is routine, and getting through those everyday things of like, okay, well, this is normal, this is what I can do. Now you take that completely away, and she only has one family member left in a childhood love that just is being, let's like making you challenge things. Like, that's hard. That's a really hard place to be. That I don't like. I'm like, guys, be nice to her. I have a pet name for her in my head, and she's Carpe.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
I'm like, you guys just leave Carpe alone.
Seriously, let Carpe breathe, okay?
Yeah.
She's going through it.
Just let Carpe diem, all right? Let her do the DMs.
Yes.
Okay, so we have one more question, and then I have another question that I woke up at 3 a.m. thinking about. So
Perfect.
like we were talking about with the Guardians, that they weren't part of the first draft of Glow and they were included later in the drafting process. With their presence, you deal with this theme of sometimes revolution requires violence. I think that Henry brings that up a lot, and that it is such a valid point because we see this throughout our own history, right? We saw it with the American Revolution, women's rights, civil rights. And I'm not saying that you're advocating for violence, right? But you're posing a very real world conundrum that's difficult to answer. And then we see this create the conflict within DM. And then it's like, you pose these larger questions that, we struggle with today. How do you grapple having such a heavy and daunting topic that will eventually have to have some kind of resolution with it? Because I know, right?
Try. Yeah, it's crazy to me that the Guardians weren't originally in the plan, because now they feel such an integral part of the story that I can't ever imagine them without it, or imagine the story without them. But yeah, they originally, Dean was very much fighting this war on her own, and she was the only person really fighting for the mortals, and I'm really glad that changed.
Yeah.
I think we needed this because DM is so idealistic to a fault, 100% to a fault. And one of my favorite lines in Spark is where he's like, did you think we were going to free our people through the power of friendship? That's not realistic, DM. Love doesn't save the day. And she truly believes that, if we just all, love each other enough, then we can fix any problem.
Yeah.
And he's like, girl, be so for real. No, honey, no. And we all know that he's right, but it sounds nicer to say, just don't be violent. Don't, that's too far. Don't fight like that.
Yeah.
It's important what you're fighting for, but you've gone too far. On paper, we want to agree with her because that sounds like the right approach to take. But then he comes in and he's like, hello, we've been trying. They're not listening. And we did this thing and all of a sudden they're listening. So which really is the right path. And so I love that he and the Guardians challenge that aspect of her idealism.
Yeah.
Because on her own, that idealism without being checked, I think can be really toxic. And a dangerous perspective to have if there's not some accountability for how unrealistic it is. But again, it's the opinion that many readers will have. So I hope they're checking it as well as other characters are holding DM accountable. But also in the Guardians, and this is something we'll see more of in Burn, the Guardians aren't a monolith either. They have factions within them. And we see that especially when she goes to when she's taken to Arboros and Heat and sees Cordelia and Vance as they're there together, but they have very different opinions. And then there's her mother who ran things a very different way.
Yeah.
And they are having internal disputes about how do we fight this war? What kind of rebels do we want to be? And not always coming to the same agreement on that.
All rebels are created equal. There's different approaches to it, right?
Yeah.
Just
and they may all be on the same. Yeah, they may all be on the same page, though. We don't care about the laws, civil disobedience. Let's break the laws.
Yeah.
But which laws and how? Because there's bombing an armory so that they can't
tag
the weapons
more.
So the weapons are taken away. And then there's poisoning a little girl.
Yeah.
And that it's a real conundrum because on the one hand you say, well, obviously poisoning a little girl is the worst possible thing you could do. No, that's terrible. And then Henry's like, if it saves 1,000 lives, is it okay? Or do we let the 1,000 people die so that one little girl doesn't get sick for an afternoon? And you're like, well, shit.
Because then it's that's...
I can't...
Because you didn't make it easy for anyone. You're because it's not the little girl died. It was
she just got sick for a day.
Yeah.
And that's why Henry was like, not that he thought it was good, but he's like, this is a sacrifice we can make.
Yeah, he's like, we're not killing her. Yeah.
Yeah, to save, in his head, to save thousands of people, potentially, to get this information on the armory that then allows them to, like, stop a lot of mortals from being murdered.
Yeah.
Is that ethically okay? I don't know. Do the ends justify the means? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer in many of these arguments that DM and Henry have. I don't think either of them is necessarily right or wrong. I think they're both right in different ways.
Yeah.
And if there was an easy answer to that, we wouldn't have so much conflict in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the trolley problem, right? And I feel like your books are constantly me replaying the trolley problem in my head, because it does make us question what are our morals and what is our stance on what we should do for the greater good. And I love that it's not the quote unquote Disney solution. It's not singing a song and holding hands and saying a passionate speech. That's not enough. And if we think that should be enough, then that's why you enjoy fairy tales, because fairy tales allow you to believe that, and that's just not how the world works.
Right.
I do appreciate that your books bring that to light.
If I were to make do a theory, and this is like, you don't have to say anything, but you can blink twice and we can delete that. You can appreciate the like English course where I'm like, all right, knowing what we know and knowing like the topics that you've done, there is going to be, just like, you know, everything that we have, no clear like cookie cutter resolution, but rather likely a resolution that's going to have, this is never going to be forever fixed. We need to keep back and approaching this and residually come back to, we can't be complacent forever. We have to have checks and balances within it. And so that's my prediction of a political resolution of like, you know, but you don't have to say anything, but you can blink twice, like, you know.
It's been a difficult, that has been a really difficult aspect of writing the book. It's something I thought about before I ever started writing, is how does this realistically end? But even knowing how it, like, quote unquote ends, it doesn't end, because this is not gonna be solved overnight. People aren't gonna magically overnight love each other and treat each other fairly.
Yeah.
Anything that happens is going to be the first step in recovery, you know? And okay, how do we move forward, hopefully in a better way than we've moved forward in the past? But it's not going to be solved.
It gives me like Hunger Games ending-esque, where it's like there is no actual there's a resolution, but like you said, the resolution is a blueprint essentially, where it's like what's to come.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One of the things I've loved writing in Burn, let me make sure I'm not spoiling anything here, is that there's a lot of that sort of looking forward into the future of okay, this war is like getting really, really bad, and certain people are looking for solutions to it. Lots of different people are looking for different solutions to it, and coming up with these ideas and then watching them go terribly wrong, as like bribery gets involved and people turning on their own. And you know, I think it's very realistic of, oh, we'll just create like a perfect, you know, democratic place where everyone has a voice and everything's fair. And it's like immediately somebody starts bribing people. And, immediately it's like, I'll kill your family if you don't vote this way. And because that's realistic. You can put into place a system of government that's fair, but in execution, it's going to go haywire like immediately. What then do you have to do to protect the fairness in the system? Because that's the real question, not how do we make this world fairer in governance, but how do we ensure that it stays that way long term?
Yeah, I say that all the time about socialism and communism, because I'm like, it's a great idea, but humans mess it up. Like,
I know, we suck.
Everything.
we can't stick to the rules. What are you talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so thank you for answering all. Okay, this is more of a comment and then a second comment. Okay, I have you, and I don't know when the next time we get to talk to you, so I will
Let's talk
milk
away.
this for all I can. Okay, so and my eyes are watering because of like my contacts. I mean, you are bringing tears to my eyes, but that's where. If you were to have told me that the first book was a metaphor for mental health, because with like the medication and getting off medication, and if you were to tell me that that was based off of like an inspiration of bipolar and the struggles of bipolar, because I am bipolar, I would have believed that entirely. I don't think I've resonated with a character, and like you know, this could be me like reading myself into DM, which is like what readers do, but I was like, that struggle with the constant like this thing inside you that wants to rage, and then this thing inside you that makes you want to do something else, and you're like, it's a part of me but it's not a part of me, and it's a voice but it's not a voice. I don't know if that was your intent, but like, by golly, I was like, oh, I really like that.
It wasn't. It is, well, its function is plot, right? To represent this like descendedness in her trying to get out. And how living in this bubble has sort of muted her and kind of turned her down.
Yeah.
And even though you still see bits of her personality through her life, it's not like she doesn't have any, it's certainly turned down. And then when you remove it, she's turned all the way up. She's a little crazy. Like we're going a little too far, because for the first time we're feeling feelings and this anger and this rage and bitterness about everything that has been hidden from her. And just everything going on in the world, she's feeling it at the most she can possibly feel it in Spark, you know?
It did things. It did things to my little bipolar heart. I was like, this is amazing.
She's trying to level out the whole series. She's just trying to like level out here. And
you know, same DM. That's
right.
Same. Yeah.
Right. And we see it kind of in some of her nihilism, especially in Heat, where she goes into this numb, dark, cold place. And in the one sense, this is like another part of her that's sort of repressed and coming out. But I think it's also a very natural, real reaction many of us have when everything sucks and when the world is in bad shape or our lives are in bad shape and we feel like we have to turn off our emotions to deal with it because it's too much for us to go through. And so we just go to this dark, numb place of everything sucks. There's nothing I can do. Screw everyone, you know, very apathetic, very nihilistic. And whereas it's maybe magical for her, I think it's natural and biological for a whole lot of us in our lives.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, last one. And then you said in your panel that there is a single line from Spark in the first page. Was that like that is a huge
First
clue
chapter.
for first chap? Was it the prologue or was it the first chapter?
It was probably the first chapter. The first chapter is just like
chock
it
full.
is so full. I did an annotated first chapter for a special edition that hasn't announced yet, so I can't say what it is. But I annotated the first chapter and I was like, I could underline like every I was trying to underline the stuff that's like, because this I don't think will come out until after Burn is out probably. And so I was trying to say like, see if you've read Burn, like see where I did what I did here. And I mean, it was just constant. It was like the whole freaking chapter has so much relevance to what's going to happen.
Yeah.
There's one thing in particular. A lot of it now we know through Heat, but there's one line in particular we have not yet seen come to fruition.
Interesting. I was reading the wrong part. I was reading the prologue. I was like, it's in reflective present tense. This means...
No, I mean the prologue too, for sure.
But I'll go back and look at things later. That's fine.
I imagine.
It's something to do with a gift she's received, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Yes.
All right. Well, it has nothing to do with tenses, apparently.
Well,
which I
was... it's funny. It's funny that you bring that up because I don't think people should necessarily read that as her saying it alive. I don't think
I agree because she says like you can't say long before we all died, which implies that there is a point of death, and she wouldn't know that if she hadn't died yet. So I think that was an obvious like reflective thing.
Yes,
for me.
I think this is her reflecting on her life someday.
Yeah.
in the afterlife, not necessarily writing her story alive. I'm not saying that necessarily means anything for the story.
Well, I mean,
but
everyone dies
this is
eventually.
how exactly. This is how I imagined it when I wrote it, is post-death, whenever that happens.
Yeah.
This is her reflecting on her story.
Yeah. Someone who read the prologue multiple times trying to figure out that one thing. Was like the tenses. Yeah. Yeah, now I'm just being selfish. Thank you for everything.
Listen, I love dissecting books. Okay?
We will now have to go and annotate the first chapter of Spark ourselves. Just kind of like, what did we predict?
I know. Do we have a date for Burn?
No, not yet.
Oh.
No, but hopefully some news soon. We'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Where can people find you if they somehow don't manage to follow you? I love your threads.
Thank you.
See me
I'm sure I'm gonna get myself in trouble someday. It's I'm at author Penn Cole on all social media platforms. And my website is penncole.com. I am most active on Instagram and Threads for sure. I also have a Discord that you can join. There's a link on my website or my Instagram bio. And it's very active. We've got a lot of people there. It's really, really fun. We talk about not just the books. I mean, books generally, life, everything that's going on in the world. So, definitely join. I spend a lot of time there. So,
well, fantastic. I'm going to have to join the Discord. My brothers will be happy if I'm actually on Discord for once. I have it. I never use it. So
it's an unhinged place. I will say we're a little crazy, but we have the best time.
Thank you so much. This has been a dream come true. I'm not like just I would say this whether you were you or not, but you are my favorite author. And
thank you so much.
Like, I think some of everything that you've like tried to do in your writing comes through, and it is with intent, and I respect you so very much for it. So thank you.
That means a lot
not
to
just
me.
coming to the show, but to the podcast, but for just like the care and consideration you put in your own work.
Yeah,
thank you. I really appreciate that a lot. I want it to be a book that people can read and just have fun, but I also, you hope that it does some good in the world as well. A little bit of both.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much, Penn. And we look forward to everything that you do in the future and cannot wait to hear about the Burn announcement.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this special episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. Stick around for next week, where we continue our spring book club on Tuesday. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would also love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode or a Patreon exclusive episode. If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk. Bye! As most people can guess, commuting in LA sucks. And so I've started taking the train. And the best thing about that is I get to read my romance books on the go.
And if you're like me and you're not commuting, you like to stay up till 2 a.m. reading Galatea, trying to get one more chapter.
Galatea is a reading app where anyone craving a little me time can dive into a library of romance stories that leave you feeling recharged and fulfilled.
There are over 1,000 bestsellers to choose from, and if you can't figure out what you want, they have Shifter Romance, Bad Boy Billionaire, Forbidden Love, Werewolf Alpha, Slow Burn, Fantasy, Teen Drama, and so much more.
Galatea is home to original series and standalone stories with an exclusive catalog of best-selling authors, with new chapters dropping daily, so there is always something new to explore.
Don't worry, you're not going to be alone. Over 30 million people have fallen in love with reading on Galatea. Join now to indulge in stories that make you feel like yourself again.
Right now, Galatea is offering our listeners an extra 25% off on top of an already irresistibly affordable subscription when you go to galatea.com/booktalk.
That's GALATEA.com/BOOKTALK to indulge in unlimited stories for even less.
That's galatea.com/booktalk.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.